Ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome all the way from India, Neerja Singh. If you see her a lot, you know that that's her signature hairstyle, you know, and if somebody can have a signature like that, please, you need to give her a warmer and round of applause.
Thank you, Njeka. Greetings to you from India and namaste.
Namaste.
One more.
Namaste.
No, not namaste. Go down. I will do that and you may just watch. Go down, touch the floor, put it on your head. That's a blessing from Mother Earth. Also, a little bit of an apology for all we have done, which has brought us to this point today. Generational diversity, generations rerouted. Why I call it a new kind of diversity. What we face today is a very poignant condition for not only speakers, for leaders, for teachers. And the reason is that there is actually a white out there. Could be a green out, could be a brown out. And let me explain why and how. I experienced a green out here on the 20th when I landed at the Monkey Valley Resort. I came into the restaurant and Bruce was generally telling all these newcomers, why don't you go take a walk on the beach while your rooms are getting ready? And I did just that. And guess what? I took a wrong turn on my way back. It was a bit of a walk down to the beach, and on my way back there was a sign pointing, the sign that talks about danger ahead. Instead of coming straight, I turned left. And I kept going until I hit the main road. And now I'm looking at the traffic. I said, wow. My first thought was, this is going to be very embarrassing for Charlotte and for Bruce. A foreign national gone missing during a convention. And then my thought went to my knapsack. What do I have? All I had was a selfie stick and wet wipes. I opened my map and I started following the directions. I thought I saw a clearing. I moved one step at a time and I said, yeah, I'm getting somewhere. I can see the Monkey Valley Resort there. And then I had to bend. There was an underbush. A thorn got caught in my beanie. Something pulled at my knapsack. And guess what? Despite all the talks on resilience, I had a moment of panic. I said, wow, this is green out. I lack the skills to get out of this place. I don't know what's out there. I turned around to cut a long story short. I got back to the track and came in. But literally, we are in the midst of a whiteout today. And I use the word whiteout from a province in India called Srinagar, where the pashmina, the shawl that some of us wear here, I've got a shawl, the pashmina shawl, the pashmina goats are raised there. And during the blizzard, the family has to go out to take care of the pashmina goats. And what they do is, when they can't see in the snowstorm, they can get lost just a few meters from their house and freeze to death. And what they do is, they tie a rope in preparation for what is to come. And what I'm here to tell you is that something is coming at us and we need to stay a step ahead. A step ahead. This is Aksir, my 31-year-old daughter who I lost on the 7th of December 2021. And the question to ask is, what happened? And I answer to that, she lived and left on her own terms. Translate that for yourself. She's not the only one. We have a growing epidemic around us today. Ticked all the check boxes, every single check box. And let me tell you the ones she did. A state level boxing champion, a phenomenal Kathak dancer, She modeled, she loved her Yamaha. She was a graduate from the topmost ranking law school of the country, a master's in psychology, and working as a therapist. And yet, she decided to take charge. She called it taking charge. Her last conversation was with me. And what I told her was that, see, even in depression, the person who is suffering or the person who is experiencing it is actually in charge, right? You have to assume responsibility. That's what we tell each other. That's what we teach each other. And when she did, this is my second one, Asawari. I did what a regular mother does, okay? Get their children the best possible education, help them operate from a position of strength, give them all possible skills. She graduated from Princeton University in New Jersey, then worked in Chicago for 3 years, did a bridge year program, went to Serbia, interned in Bosnia, extremely well traveled, a phenomenal ballerina, and then she decided to come back to India. At that time I felt that maybe she's shortchanging herself. Maybe she's sabotaging her life and her career. She could stay on in Wall Street perhaps. But she chose to come back. We're very happy to have her back. Just to share the story that she tells me on one of her trips home, Ma, you have been a good parent, but not a great parent. Not a great parent. You know why? Because all of us here, parents and aspiring parents, or those who are just parenting a cat or a dog, we don't know what is out there and what is evolving there. There are influences on our children we have no idea of. So I want to share what I have seen with all of you here. Disclaimer, not as an expert, but as an experiencer. I'm experiencing things. I'm not as a thought leader, but as an observer. Thought leader involves certain assumptions. No, things are too volatile, and things are too fragile. Things are too iffy. We are fooling ourselves. And not here just to help all of you, also be helped. Just talking to you today is helping me. Right. I see from your faces that you get that. Elimination of Harmful Language Initiative, EHLI. Have you heard of this? This is an initiative that has been started by some young people and is being taken very seriously. Puffin Publishers almost rewrote Roald Dahl's books to take away words like ugly, to take away a word like poor, because they want the language to be sensitive. Stanford University has set up a unit where they create micro lists of words that are not acceptable anymore. The word guru features in that list, and there's a fear of offending Hindu fundamentalists. There's a word powwow. Let's not say this word because a certain community might be offended. We're getting that sensitive and things are moving in directions not known before. And we are writing and speaking and creating content and trying to influence people, but be aware of the whiteout conditions around us. And I say whiteout not to create a sense of alarm, but to create a sense of urgency, that there is something happening out there that we don't entirely understand. Why are we letting the young school us? And the older generation is ceding very quickly, very fast. All right, we take a step back. You're getting a nosebleed just because I use a certain word. So we go back and and we accept and we make changes. Now, isn't that something new? The battle over gender therapy. Gender medicine is another very delicate, very sensitive, very volatile, a very white out condition right now because we don't know where we are going. The number of young people coming out as a gender which is different than they were assigned at birth, that number is growing. There could be all kinds of reasons. Some people say it's because there's a cult out there, or maybe there are entertainers and famous people who are setting a certain example who younger people want to follow. But there are genuine cases also where young people genuinely feel uncomfortable with the body that they've been given for the voice. And then the ethical dilemma. How far do you take it? Where does medication come in? What role do the parents play? Do they have a say in the matter? Because they are the ones who are going to be the support structure. When a young person is transitioning, at the age of 12, 13, you decide that I want to be a man. And you're uncomfortable with your breasts sprouting. And you want hormone therapy or you want suppressive medications. These are very, very fundamental existential issues. Sorry, I got excited. These are really very, very extremely fundamental issues. They are existential. I'd go so far as to say that. And we ought to know a little more about this. We need to educate ourselves that these are things that the young people are struggling with today. Along with that comes the mental health, conditions of depression, conditions of just a whole lot of confusion and mixed messages that they are receiving, not just from the airwaves, from all of us, because we are equally confused. We are equally confused. More teenagers than ever seeking transitions. So gender medicine is huge because the number of people, young people, they used to come out earlier also, but the numbers are growing today. There's also a change in the trend. Earlier, a young person who was assigned female at birth would probably look to transition to the other gender. Today, it's also going in reverse. The grey and the brown. Who's the grey? I'm the grey. Who's the brown? Brown is the diversity explosion happening out there. For the first time, the majority is becoming the minority. And we take the case of United States as an example because that's the one that's most audible and noisy. They talk the most, they create the most literature, most of the content we consume is from the United States, most of the programs we watch come from there. So some of these points are with reference in particular to United States, but in different ways to various degrees it applies to other countries, other regions also. So let's talk of United States. What's happening there? For the first time, the other races, Asians, Hispanics, the other colors, neighborhoods are changing, demographics are changing, and they say demography is destiny. And if that is the case, the generational war in the United States will become between the younger and the older, the old dependency and the young dependency. By old dependency, I mean 60 and above, who are now dependent on government care, government support. And the child dependent, that's the younger generation, right? So the younger generation has parents who obviously want money to be spent on education, on child welfare, child care, and the older generation wants money to be spent on retirement benefits. They have different concerns. So the generational diversity that we see today is a new kind of diversity because it's not about music, it's not about style, it's not about culture, pop culture, none of that. It's about power. It's about survival. It's about politics. It's about language, which is why we need to start paying attention to this generational diversity. We need to understand what are the concerns of the different generations, what the expectations are from life, and where do we go forward from there. The diversity explosion is America's 21st century baby boom, because the diverse populations are the ones that are producing more. And the minority, that's the white population, which is actually defines the baby boomers in America, they aren't as productive, within quotes, productive. So this is something that we really need to understand more, to appreciate the differences between generations and the tensions that are only going to grow. That's the response this deserves. But this is real. This is a view of a generation today. Why get married? And it's not just applicable to singles. Even people who've been in marriages and are out of marriages, we don't want to marry today. Where's the need? And the people who just by choice have remained single, because marriage is not fulfilling a function that it did all these years for the earlier generations. You have everything today with your laptop. You have your entertainment. You're not bored. For food, you don't need somebody at home cooking for you. The person sitting at home doesn't need the guy to be bringing home the bacon or the bread and put it on the table. All this is facilitated. So why marry? And the redundancy, the potential redundancy of marriage is going to have far-reaching consequences for the way the world functions, or is going to function. Because marriage was also a unit that socialized the children, that developed the children. It was not just about meeting their needs, it was about leading them, about developing them. And there were grandparents who picked up the slack at times. So this is another phenomena which adds to that chaotic conditions or confusing conditions that we see around us. Youth suicide. In India, I know the statistics, 2019 statistics is what we have. Between 18 to 30 and 30 to 45, the age group, 67% of the suicides were from this age group. Now the reasons in every country, every region will differ. But this is a growing epidemic. And I have experienced it firsthand. This is a growing epidemic. I really thought I was a progressive, regular mother. But you don't know today. You don't know today. The internet does not take factor in cultural factors. There's an avalanche, train wreck of information landing on your children today. Your home is not a haven anymore. You cannot shut the front door and say that you're safe inside, because the digital highways are right there inside. When your child says, or when you say that your child is at home, are you sure? Are you sure they're at home? There's a whole world out there over which we don't exercise any control, and algorithms have not gotten an education yet, because we haven't perhaps as citizens reached a tipping point where we start creating enough noise to say, do it now. This is harming our children. And the irony of it is, when I wrote my first book on generational diversity, and I started writing before Aksir, my daughter, passed away, I used to see things happening around me that didn't make sense. So I started writing and observing. And on the back cover, I wrote, blah, 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 blah. And generational gap can sometimes lead to mental ill health, estrangement, family estrangement, and in extreme cases, loss of life. Little did I know that. Little did I know. And I was asked this question by somebody at another convention, are you saying this accident happened in your life because of generation gap? The answer is yes and no, but to quite a degree. You can save stress to each other if you know where the other generation is coming from. There are certain things I know now, I did not know it back then. And my daughter was telling me certain things. But I, like we say, I was hearing her, perhaps not listening to her. Not listening to her. I'm not seeing the pain and the confusion and the fear behind all that she was sharing. Youth suicide. It's unacceptable. This is not how it's supposed to be. The mandate of every generation is to leave behind one that is more potent, more productive, more progressive. That's what my grandfather did, that's what my father did, and that's what I wanted to do. But I'm not sure I'm going to be doing that. Am I going to be the first generation that's leaving behind one that is not as healthy, as wholesome, with as great a stamina to carry things forward? This happened on the 19th, this 19th. And it's a series, 25 years old. What is 25? Peak humanity. There is a growing thought out there, not just thought, it is thought based on research, that mankind is hitting peak humanity. And peak humanity is in two ways. We cannot run any faster. We pushed the limits. We don't get to grow any taller unless you undergo surgery and put those, metallic, there's a term for that, and there are people who are undergoing that surgery to become taller. Adding 5 inches, 1 inch at a time, extremely expensive surgery, but they're doing it. We cannot grow any taller. Science says that. And the second way we are hitting peak humanity is the replacement rate is declining. Not enough babies. Not enough babies means not enough market. It means abandoned villages. It means just desolation. It means the entire dynamics, the motor of economy slowing down. You need people. People is what keeps the life going. So we are hitting peak humanity, and there are predictions on this. It could happen in the next 50, 60, 80 years. Those of you who are 40 here, I'm 42. Those of you who are 40 here will likely see peak humanity during your lifetime. So this is something to consider when we are talking to each other, the generations. The world's newest major, the religions got cut out there because I was trying to put all the text up. The word that's missing is the world's newest major religion. The world's newest major religion is called Nouns. And what is this religion? No religion. Again, it's specific to certain regions of the world. United States, North America, part of Europe, largely. And you can say that these are the rich spots. They don't feel the need to pray to a higher power. Psychological reasons for doing away with religion. Discomfort with feeling bound or held back or dictated certain customs. So this no religion this is a book that you could consider looking at this book, because it again is defining something which is going to have long-lasting effect on how we conduct our lives. Religion is important. Wars have been fought on the basis of religion. And religion also keeps a country like mine going. We have poverty, we have corruption, we have a lot of problems, but we also have the next life. We are religious, we believe in the next life, and we say, okay, all right, I'm not doing so well in this life, but I always have my next life. It's a hope. You go to the temple for hope. And when you have a world population not believing in religion anymore, they are agnostics, they are atheists, and they're to say, okay, life is just this, nothing beyond that. Think for a moment, what does it feel like? What does it fill you with? What kind of sentiment or emotion? And this religion, the knowns are growing in number quite fast. This you would have come across, the eco-anxiety disorder. The DSM, Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Health, describes it now. This is a real thing. Especially young people. Earlier, for the earlier generations, disasters would happen, but there would be one disaster and there would be time to come out of that disaster or cope with that disaster. But what's happening today is, one after another, you don't have time to get up and dust yourself off. And then the news you see again. And bad news makes the best news, so the young people are just reading and watching alarming facts, stories of alarming events. So eco-anxiety is something physical, very akin to a phenomena that started some years ago in Japan, hikikomori. Maybe some of you have heard of hikikomori. That was social anxiety, where young people just shut themselves off from the world and lived with their parents in one room, with their food being given to them, just an allergy to people. And here we are, today, very young children feeling physically sick, emotionally sick. So it's important for my generation, our generation, to understand what they're going through, because there was a time in India when Aksir, the daughter that I talk about, my husband and I were sitting there and she came to us, she was in tears. She says, you guys need to wake up. You need to invest in a place somewhere in the hills, somewhere safe. This place is not safe. And typical to my generation, the attitude was, oh, it's too far off, not happening to us. You relax, you get on with your work. Not really acknowledging it. I just mentioned hikikomori. This is kodokushi. This is a growing problem of lonely deaths. Again, everything that I talk to you about is connected with generational communication, generational wellness, because our human survival is, I believe, based upon how well we function as a team. This is a phenomenon that's happening in Japan, Korea, in many other countries, where old people, because of the family breakdown sometimes, people are living by themselves, and there's a particular report about a Japanese gentleman who passed away and was discovered 3 years after he passed away. And how did that happen? Because his rents, his bills, everything was being paid automatically, and when that stopped, that's when it was discovered that the gentleman was wrong. So we talk of life being, we talk of human dignity in our lives, but there's also dignity to our going, right? That's important, how you go. And in certain cultures, you do believe that consciousness continues your energy, call it electromagnetic energy, call it soul, call it your spirit, that continues, that's eternal. Energy is eternal. But how that energy leaves, under what conditions? So this is happening because death is not visible in certain cultures. There is no ceremony around taking the person along with the community, along with the family, seeing them off with your rituals and customs. It's a growing problem of the lonely deaths. This is an unknown orientation. These are the aces. They are asexual. Again, it's being called the online phenomena. But we have to remind ourselves that we all are actually half online. Even I, when I'm standing in front of you, anybody you're communicating with is partly online today. You're not fully here, right? And we are also moving towards a time when singularity will happen. And I'll tell you more about singularity a couple of slides down. But this is something new. Their contention is that keeping your, a sexual or romantic relationship right up there at the top of the totem pole to be considered as the most superior way to achieve human connection is something that they don't abide by that. They say there are many other ways to be able to connect with each other, and we are the aces. They call themselves the aces. Which is to say that the complexion of the family today will be different. It's possible for it to be different. Two best friends could be raising an adopted child because they are attracted to it. They may be great friends. It's not just friends. Just friends is we are just friends. It's a little inferior to being special friends, but no longer for them. These young people are trying to forge new ways to connect with each other, to be together. So there's an idea for you. Aces. Now the ego effect. I do believe that we have to come out of the ego effect. Every generation has said this. Learn from your parents. Nobody does. We want to make our own mistakes. Even the young generation today is saying that. We want the space to make our own mistakes and learn. But there are some time-tested thumb rules, time-tested. They're values. Values are eternal, evergreen. Good is good and bad is bad. You can keep saying now that, not my way, this is not my way. In my personal opinion, in my humble personal opinion. But there is a right and there's a wrong. Whatever is life affirming is right. So I would urge all of you, I advocate that don't be like the health industry. Why the health industry? Because doctors spend so much time and energy and money and effort on getting the training, they cannot afford to be wrong. And if they're wrong, well, there are ways around it. Be like the aviation business. Aviation business has the black box. And the reason we have done away with a lot of accidents is because they've used the black boxes, taken the lessons seriously and learned from their mistakes and admitted mistakes. Ethics, epistemology, metaphysics, all uprooted and outrooted today. The nature of existence, how we acquire knowledge, these are completely newly defined. In the Mahabharata, you may have heard of Mahabharata. If you haven't, it's one of India's enduring mythological tale. Some people say it's real, it happened, but it's really the bylaws of India in a manner, if you can put it like that. You have your PSASA bylaws. These are the informal bylaws of the country. They're so much a part of our conscience. It was a war fought by 6 generations. Remember those days, people were married at age 15. And people lived beyond 100. So there have been debates on this, trying to, establish the veracity of this claim. But the veracity has been established. There were 6 generations. I use this analogy to ask all of us this question: if there were a war today, would 6 generations fight together like they did in the Mahabharata? 3 generations cannot get into a car from home and get to... They can't agree on the air conditioner. Window down, window up, AC on, AC. Music. Something is missing somewhere. Shut up and listen. Therefore, this teenager urges all of you now and then to shut up and listen. So reroute and reroute, not reroute, reroute. This is a bleeding heart. My daughter's healer told me, plant the bleeding heart for her. This is what I do. In all our homes, family homes, my friends have planted the bleeding heart for her because she was a bleeding heart, and she is not the only one who was a bleeding. This entire young generation, they are social justice warriors, and they bleed. They literally bleed. These are the reroutes. Lead from hope, not anxiety. Prepare the rope. Remember the rope we talked about. Prepare it ahead. Stay a step ahead. Anticipate. And my dad and mom taught me. How many of us are saying, how many of our young friends are able to say this? My dad and mom taught me. My YouTube taught me. My peer taught me. Or my parenting skills. Because again, like I said, we are fulfilling their needs. We are meeting their needs, but not leading and developing them today. There's reverse parenting happening. We're having to fight very hard for their affection and their respect. Unfair. This is a talk I gave, that's my YouTube talk, the unaffordable cost of generation gap. This is a new generational diversity, my friends. You do so much work around gender, around socioeconomic, around ethnic. I urge you to start looking at generational diversity for the sake of generational wellness. So, once again, let's start to shut up and listen. Thank you so very much. Thank you.